My name is Dora Brugier. My Indian name is Tipi Otawi, and I was raised in Chair Creek. I was born there and raised there, and went away to a boarding school at the old agency. Then I didn't graduate or anything. I just quit school because I was getting older in age. Like I was 18, and a long time ago they quit school when they're 18 years old, and so I quit school. My father died then, and I had to help my mother, and I had one younger brother to take care of and all that. So I didn't go to school. So I'm not I didn't have no education, as getting a diploma and all that. So I just did more like working most of the time, such as the more work I did was like cooking all the time, because my mother taught me to cook, and she said someday you can help cook here and there, gatherings or whatever. When you're asked, you can help. So that's how I learned. And then in school, I took up home economics, which helped me a lot to cook also. So I started out as a helper in the schools, day schools in Cherry Creek, as cook's helper, or sort of help children with their toothbrushes when they come in, or I see that their shoestrings are tied or their coats are buttoned up when they go outside and all that. I learned things like that through the teachers. Then we got married and moved up here, and I wanted to work, but my husband, he's a policeman, and he wanted me to just stay home and take care of the house and have meals ready and his clothes ready to wear each time, and have to change clothes every day. And so I did that, but my kids went away to school at the boarding school, and then there was nothing for me to do after I do all these chores. I kept telling him I want to work, and he said, no, you don't have to, because I'm working, I'm doing all this. You don't have to. But it's boring just sitting at home. I could sew and all that, but I'd rather move around. I moved around all the time in my life, working outside, riding horseback and all that. So one day I went to the cafe, and I seen him washing dishes and all that, and someone needed help, so I asked to do that. And she said, well, you come over this evening, you can wash dishes. So I washed dishes and put things away. I washed dishes for about like 3 days. Then I thought I could be a waitress. So I asked to be a waitress. So I did that a few days, and then I couldn't do it because it's too much of, asking questions, and some things I didn't know, and it's slow for me to be writing down the things they ordered and all that. And I kept forgetting to set the table or taking the water first and all that, So I said, well, I think I'd rather just wash dishes or help cook. So I quit being a waitress, and I washed dishes and I helped cook. And pretty soon I said, you know what, I could cook. You could, because the cook didn't show up. I can do it because I've been cooking for my children and my husband. I know I can do it. So she tried me out, and I did the breakfast. Must have did it good because she hired me to be a breakfast cook. So I did that, and pretty soon I did the lunch, and then, fast order, cook, all that. She taught me, and I caught on right away, so that's how I got to be working in the cafes. And I worked in 2 places. I worked at the trucks. They had the trucks, the cafe along the road, 212, and I worked there. And then evenings, I'll come back to this other cafe that was along the road, also named Stauby's Cafe. And I worked there as helping to clean up afterwards and all that. Instead of washing dishes, and then pretty soon they wanted a cook at the Head Start school. And I went and signed up, and I was hired right away. So there I was stuck for 4 years cooking for Head Start. And when I also helped with teaching the little ones, and the teacher's aide I was when a cook came. But I still think that that was too much for me. I couldn't hardly teach the little ones. Oh, I took care of them, all that, but I couldn't, you know how little ones are, they don't sit still very long, and it's kind of hard chasing after them, all that. So I said, I'd rather cook, you know, I want to cook. So then I went in as a baker. I baked all the fried breads or bread and, you know, things like that. Then I got to be a cook for 4 years there at the Head Start school, and then somehow my husband didn't want me to cook, to work, but after he seen that I can do it, he let me, and I was surprised that I was doing good and all that. So I stayed being a cook, and then they needed someone to be cooking at the big school, temporary. So I signed up and I got that job again, so I went to cook at the big school there, but I couldn't handle those big pots and pans to cook, so I said, I'm gonna help the baker, because I knew this boy that was a baker. So I went there and I helped bake bread, rolls, cookies, and all that. And I taught him how to do a lot of baking also while he was there. And so I worked there 1 year, and when springtime came, they said, sign up to work here in the fall, but I didn't think I'd like it, you know. So I said, no, I'm gonna look for another job. So that's how come I went back to work here and there, back at the cafes, you know, cooking. And she hired me as assistant manager at the Truck Stop Cafe, which I really liked, because I could hire my own waitresses and my own cooks or helpers, you know, dishwashers. So I did that for a while, and then they needed somebody as an extension service worker. So I signed up, and 3 people signed up, and one of them got the job and I didn't. So I went back to work at the cafe, and then I was called back over there, and they said, I think you're going to get this job because the others quit when they got to know what they had to do. They quit and they didn't, and you passed yours. But the only thing I did have was a car. I had to drive out to communities to help cook, you know, using commodity foods and all that. So I told my husband, I said, I need a car. And he said, well, you work harder and you can buy your own car, save your money, you know. So I did. I saved my money, and he helped me buy a car, and I had a car. So I went back and said, I have a car now. Can I try for it? And they said, sure. So when I got the job, they sent me away to school in Brookings, South Dakota, for cooking and, you know, food handling and all that. So I went to school in Brookings without knowing that, you know, I can learn. But I studied real hard, you know. It's kind of hard, but because of cooking at those cafes and seeing people, you know, the head cook looking at her menus and seeing all that, I learned, you know. So when I got over there, I went to school 2 weeks, and at the end we had tests, and I passed, you know. And I was so happy. I came back, and so I got the job. So I worked there 11 years as a nutrition aide, which went all over the reservation in the districts to cook. And I had an office in Dupree. At the courthouse, I had an office. Even had my own secretary, and well, I was doing real good. And people look at me and they said, how did you do this? You know? And I said, well, try. You can try, you know. You gotta try and keep at it when you want to learn something. And when you want to do something that you want to do, if you keep at it, you can get it. And that's how I worked there for a long time. And people knew me all over. Wherever I go, there's always someone there I knew, which is so I was Aunt Dora all over the reservation. But today I'm Grandma Dora. as I got older. But anyway, that's my work in my life, as how I got started. But it's always, you have to go training for everything. You have to go to workshops. You have to do this. You got to learn to live with other people, get along with other people who you work with, no matter who it is, you know. You have to get along, not complain and all that. That's what I learned. So I had this job for a while, and then until my husband passed away, and which was kind of hard. He was all the help I had. And when he was gone, nobody helped me fix my car. Nobody got me ready to go and help me along. So I kind of got, you know, kind of slacked, you know, things I did. I'll be late for work, or I'll be, I don't know, it kind of hard when, you know, you work with somebody for a long time and helped you, and they're gone, and you no one to depend on. So I had a hard time trying to get adjusted by myself, but I tried, and it's very hard. Well, anyway, I worked like 2 more years after that, and I told them, would it be okay if you transferred up here, you know, and then you don't have to go out so much, you know, to other places. So I did. I transferred my work from Dupree up here to get an office up here, and you know what? I never know how to type. I didn't learn that in school or nothing, but I learned there too, just looking at the key. And although I was slow, I typed out all my menus and made out my own menus and recipes and everything, and I did that. Then there was a copy machine there, which I copy all the recipes and things, and I take it out to the districts. And by that time, my car broke down, and I didn't want to have any more, and I didn't want to travel toward this east end or west end. I know very well because I live over there and I know the roads and everything. But coming over here, going this way to Honor Trees or White Horse and all that, it's kind of hard. And I didn't have a car, so I went with someone that would drive for me, or my supervisors would go with me. And that was good, but I worked like 2-3 years after I came up here, moved up here. And then I got so, my grandchildren, the babies were all coming up, growing up, and I had to take care of them, I thought, because their parents parted, divorced, and the children didn't know where to go. And I pitied my grandkids, and I had to take care of them, I thought, you know, and they cried for me, so I resigned from my job and then took care of my grandchildren. And when they don't mind, they don't sit still. I said, sit down, be quiet, let me tell you something. Then I'll start telling little stories like Humpty Dumpty or, you know, nursery rhymes, and that's how I got started. And they sit there and they were interested, they listen, all that. And then the older ones, I go back to a long time ago, things that, how I lived in the days, you know, when my parents were alive and all that, you know. I start telling these things, and that was in 1985. And 86, I retired from the work I was doing, and then I start telling stories, and then I think that's how I come to know that children are real anxious to know stories. They want to hear. They like to listen. They come back and say, tell us another, Grandma, you know. And then pretty soon I was invited to school, their classrooms. And I was kind of bashful, kind of shy to do that, you know, because my grandchildren are mine and they're always around me and they can listen. But over there, the different children, I'm afraid they won't listen or they won't pay attention or something. And I kind of hesitated about going over there, but they were after me, my grandkids, and that was good. I want them to hear, they kept saying. So one day I thought I'd go. I was invited to their classroom, and that's how I got started in storytelling. And I'll be called back again the next time to a higher grade, to the high school. And then I think I was getting better and better as I go along doing it, you know. So when I get home, I'll sit there and think about things or read, you know, read things of long ago that I might get ideas from, and start, you know, really put myself into. And besides retiring from work, there was nothing. I didn't think that, you know, I thought I'll take it easy and stay home and all that, but I miss going to work, being with the people I work with and all that. And the paycheck I was getting, I didn't get that. I'm just getting little money, but then, you know, I thought more of my grandkids, so I just, you know, till later I got Social Security, which helped me, and I guess that's how I got started in storytelling, through my children as they went to school. And now I'm glad that I did that, because more people want to hear more and more as you tell. And some of my elder ladies that I'm with say, don't do that. Don't be telling those, because, you know, all the white people took that away from us. They made us forget our language and the Indian cultural ways, and so you don't have to tell them, because they made us forget it, and now they want to hear it. And so for a while I thought about it, you know, maybe I shouldn't. But again, I thought, no, I better tell, because my mother, when she was dying, she said, my girl, she said all this in Lakota, my girl, she said, when you get older, you tell all the things I've been teaching you and telling you. Your father taught you all these things also. You tell these things to your children, so they too can tell it to their children when they get married and have their own children. And I thought it was a good idea of saying that. I often thought of that every time I sit still, think about my mother. And so I said, one day I said, I think I'll do that. And then I prayed that I can do it. So one time, a group of white children came for a camp at the school, and, well, not the school, but the church. And so I went to welcome them, and I started talking about Lakota ways and how our Lakotas are. And so, you come to visit our Indian children, they're going to be shy. They always keep their heads down. But we are taught, Lakota people keep their heads down, but they're listening. They're observing things you tell them. They're keeping it in themselves, so, but they're hearing you. So at first they're going to do that, but after a while, when they get to know you, and if they look at you and they're going to look you over, they're going to find out that you're caring for them, they're going to start talking to you, and they're going to come out with their, whatever they have, you know, they'll tell you, and they'll listen to you. We Lakota people are taught to listen, and to look, and hear, and see, and learn, you know. So that's one thing. When I went to Head Start school, that's the theme I made for those little children, you know. Look, listen, see, and hear, and do it, you know. So these two like to hear that. But anyway, going back to storytelling, I became more and more involved in group peoples or gatherings that come. They said, Dora, could you come and say something? And I was, okay. And besides doing all this, I was also learning the way of the church, because I was a lay reader at the church, and I wanted to become more into the church. So I was studying to be a deacon of our church. So besides doing this, I go to classes, and I'll go away to seminar, which they call seminary school. Every 2 weeks, I go away for Bible studies and all that, to learn that also. And then some people would say, how can you do all this? You know, you didn't even graduate, you didn't even go to school. How come you're doing all this? because it's not too late to learn. I want to learn before, I still could hear good and see good, and my mind is still clear, I hope. So I do all the things that I want to do that I missed, when I was young. But with the help of God, I think I'm just doing it because I want them to know how it is in your life as you grow older, and all the things that happen to you, sad things, bad things, troubles and all that, But you can come through it, So that's how come I'm not afraid to share my stories or things that happen that I experienced. I'd like to share it to people who want to know. So that's how I'm doing that for my grandchildren, and now everybody calls me Grandma Dora. Even white people and whoever there is, they call me. I'm glad, And so I've been giving titles in my life. I was a First Lady of the Year in 1995, and I was all honored, and I was invited here and there. I was so proud. And then I was ordained a deacon. Before that, in 1994, I was ordained a deacon of our Episcopal Church. And I was so proud of that also, that I could do that. And my children always say, Mom, you didn't go to school. You didn't know that. You can't even speak English very well. How come you're doing that? You embarrass us, And I said, well, I'll try not to embarrass you that much, but I'm way older than you are. I'm the one that raised you. I had you and raised you. How come I embarrassed you, And they kind of looked at that and said, oh, okay. These are things that you have to learn as you go on in your life. You can't just say you're embarrassed, You gotta see the world. Look at it and see how it treats you and how you can do things better in your life. And sometimes they say, don't do that. Don't go over there. You shouldn't do that. But I said, but I want to, And in my life, I want to do that. Because when I was going to school, I always sit there and watch the teachers, the way they do things to teach us, and how they dress and how they move around. I see all that watching them. Sometimes I always wish I could be a teacher one of these days, I want to be a teacher to teach my children or people And one lady told me, you are a teacher now, which made me happy also. So I didn't graduate to be a teacher or anything, but I'm glad that I can do that. Excuse me. Well, anyway, I also have dreams of things, and then sometimes it happens in a similar way that I had that dream. So I think that when you get older, you see dreams or you see visions. And I tell that also, and they won't believe it. Oh, you're just making that up. Oh, you read that someplace and you're telling it. And then I say, no, it's from me. It really happened, Like just 2 weeks ago, I got sick. I had a sharp pain here in my back. I heard it like it was going to cramp. And I got dizzy. It seemed like my eyes were blurring. And I said, something's wrong with me, and my voice couldn't come out. I went to drink water, and I said, something's wrong with me, and people looked at me and said, sit down. They said I was going to touch that chair to sit down. It seemed like it was far away So I went like this, and I hit it, because it was right here, but it looked like it was far away. I said, I'm really dizzy. And I closed my eyes. I sat down, and then I said, my throat is dry. I want water. So they brought me water. I drank it, and the third swallow, it just came back up. And then the people around it. This was at the soup kitchen at the Guildhall. I went in there, and I really got sick. And so right away they said, oh, Dora, and my back hurts. And so they rubbed my back, and they was holding me. I tried to drink that water, and I said, call the CHR. I said, I'm sick. And they called the CHR, and she came, and they took me to the hospital. As I went outside, I took a deep breath, and felt good to be outside. But when I walked in the hospital, I said, I can hardly walk. So they brought a wheelchair out. Right away they said it's going to be a heart attack, which scared me. I never had a heart attack. Put me on a stretcher, and they did all kinds of stuff. And right away they said they're going to send me away to Rapid City. But I didn't care because I was sick. I just laid there, and that pain just went away. But it made my heart beat really fast, and see, like, put IVs on me and heart monitor, or not heart monitor, but what do you call oxygen, because I was taking deep breath. So they sent me away to Rapid City. And on the way, I prayed that I won't be too sick. It'll be just something maybe, I said, because there was a lot of things I have to do that I must do when I come back, I prayed all the way, and when he got over there, they admit me, and right away they put this heart monitor on me, and they kept taking my blood pressure. My blood pressure was really high. Taking it, putting something under my tongue, and then I had a headache. It hurt here and back here, so I said, my head hurts, They came and looked, and one doctor said, that's just close your eyes, and they put wet rags on me. Oh, I don't know, I was sick. I was real sick. But I could remember things, But we will have tests early in the morning, they said. See what's wrong. Maybe your heart is damaged, or maybe your arteries are plugged. So we'll find out tomorrow, So I laid there, waited, and I got phone calls and everything. So they put a phone by my bed. Everybody's thinking of you, and you go Butte, they said. But every time it rings, somebody would call from here asking about me, and they said, I'm okay, I'll be all right, don't worry, and all. I hope it's not a heart attack, they were saying. I don't know yet, And I laid there, and they said my son and his wife came and sat there till 12 o'clock that night. After they left, I wanted to sleep, but there's a nurse sitting by me, taking my temp and my blood pressure. And she said, you can sleep now, I won't bother you. And I didn't go to sleep. I kept turning and all that. I wanted to lay on my side, but that heart monitor was right here. And finally I went to sleep. And I had a dream that I was going along a creek, and I wanted water. I think I'll just go down, take some in my hand, drink some. I could hear it going, and there's birds flying around, and butterflies, and the grass was green, there's flowers. And I look across, and there's trees, and things were blooming all everywhere. It's just beautiful. As I got to the creek, it was just going slowly, so I went and I knelt down, and I put my hands down in there, and the water was cool, so I was splashing it, and then I was get a drink of water, and then I felt of something, and I looked into it. It was a little turtle, and I caught it, and I looked at it, and here the turtle said, "Hui, hui," which means she was a woman, and she said, "Hui, hui," and so I took it and I went like this and held it to my heart, and I said, oh my God, because my mother heals with turtles. She's a medicine woman, always talking about turtles. I remember that. I said, help me in Lakotas. I said, you know, secret turtle, help me. And I was holding it here, and I looked down, I could see the mouth talking to me. And she said, Kea wa unshila mie, Kea wa wokia mie, Kea wa kawi mie, o chichinkte mushimala, which means, I'm glad that you has asked me to help you. And she said, I am the helper, and I have compassionate too, and I am the secret turtle. I will help you. So I grabbed it and hung on to it real tight against my heart, and I said, you know, all right, I said. And she said, and it seemed that pain was going away. I was pushing it down, and it was scratching me here, you know. But I just hung on to it, and she said, "Oyate ki wa chinyampi," you know. "Takoja chinyampi." She said, "The people need you," she said, "especially the grandchildren. So you will go home and help them." And I said, "To keshke oi talking tahe wana wane tuma ota." And I said, "How can I help them? I'm getting old." And she said, "Wo chakyaka." She said, "Talk to them. The stories, you know. Remember." She said, I looked at her, and she put her head back in the shell, and the scratchings went in. So I hung on to her real tight, and you know. I said, "All right, I'll do it. You know, I will do it." And just then, someone was trying to pull my arm, and so I didn't want to let go. I hung on, but I opened my eyes, and the nurse came in. She put my hand out, and she said, "Come to get your vitals." So I put this one next, and I hung on to it, and I really put my nightgown to look in, and there's a heart monitor that I was hanging on to, all that. Which really, but it surprised me. I didn't laugh, but that dream just stayed within me. I just hung on to this until she took my blood pressure and my temp. And she said, "Your temp is fine." She said, "Your blood pressure went down, but you still have to get your, you know, examinations and tests." She said, "So we're taking you now, and we want you to wash up and all that." So, but my ears were ringing, and that dream just kept, you know. So I got up to go to the bathroom. She was going to help me in there. But I took my pen and pencil I had there, and I wrote down what she said. What she said, I wrote down so I won't forget. And on top, if anything happens, you know, this is the story. Well, not story, but my dream. So I lay here. I wrote it on a piece of paper, and she helped me take a shower and all that. And then they took me to test all day long. Took pictures of my heart. And when I went down there, I kept thinking of that turtle, all the things she said to me. And then, "Well, what are you going to do now here?" I said, "Because they put things here, and then they, just like they were drilling it in." I could hear that sound. I said, "Oh, what are you drilling in my chest?" And they said, "No, that's just to get an ultrasound." And I said, "Ultrasound? I'm not going to have a baby. Because I heard them say they do that too when they see the baby or something. First time I heard that on the heart. So. And they laughed and said, "You seem to be okay. You're laughing and all that, you know." And then, so they had all kinds of tests there, and they took me back. And it was lunchtime, and I was so hungry. I ate, and I kept thinking of that dream I had. And after I had lunch, another thing happened. After I had lunch, I was tired from going here and there. So I lay down. That window was right there. I turned this and I was looking at the sky, and there was clouds, pretty clouds up there and everything. All of a sudden I see something, and this time it wasn't a dream. I seen it. I seen something. I looked up like that, and some birds were flying, and they came to the window and they made the sign of the cross. There's five birds that came, and they made a cross, and just stood there and at the window. And I looked, and I said, "What kind of birds are they?" And looked like they're little sparrows. And I looked, and I said to there's a curtain through there on the other side. There's a woman laying there. And I said, "Could you get up?" And she said, "No, I got things hooked on me." "Why?" And so I said, "The window, if you could see it." I said, "There's some birds there, and they made, it's a cross they made." And she said, "Oh, I wish I can see it," she said, And I looked, and just lay it, about 2-3 seconds, it was like that, until they kind of, one by one, they kind of flew away. And one bird just came and just stayed around that window all the time. And that really made me happy also. And then I said, "That's a cross." And I also wrote down, I made a cross and made some little bird like that. That was the way I seen it. And because I think, I don't know, I wasn't scared to die or anything, but I said, when they took me up there, I'm not scared to die. I'm old now. Lived all these years, and it's for me. I should die. It's all right, Lord. I said, so if I have to, I'm ready and all that. And here it seemed like I'm having all those dreams like that. And then that night when I went to sleep, again I dreamt that somebody came beside me and was holding my hands. So I was feeling of the hand like this, and here my husband came and he said, "Oh, you're all right. I thought you was very sick, ready to die, and so I come to see you." And I said, "Ready to die?" I said, "I'm okay." And I looked at him. "When did you come?" I said, and I was going to reach out to hug him, and it was the doctor. And he said, "Oh, you reach out to hug me, I'll hug you, Dora," he said, and he gave me a hug, which made me feel so good. He said, "You'll be okay." He said, "Everything's fine." But I didn't tell him the dream, but that's, I don't know why it was my husband. And the way he said, "You were ready to die, so come to see you, but you're okay," he said. That's a dream I had also. But I just wanted to share that story, the story about the turtle and the birds that seemed to help me come through this. Which when the doctor said I was okay, there's nothing, no damage or nothing, I really was so happy. I said out loud, I said, "Praise the Lord, thank you, Jesus, for all this." And in myself, I said, also the turtle and the birds helped me. That just recently this happened, so I just thought. But last fall, I want to tell you about something that happened to these people. We're going to have election on our chairman. So everybody was going here and there and saying he's going to win, or this one's going to win, and all that. And which side are you on, and all that, you know? And I said, oh, whoever is going to win will win. I said, you know, it depends on the people, who they like, or who they trust, and all that. And one day they called me and said there was a grave out between Red Scaffold that I have to touch my tobacco before I tell this, because this is about an old woman. I'm supposed to burn a sage or seed or something, but that's all right. Anyway, she said, you come along because you're one of the descendants of this old lady that was buried a long time ago on one of those hills, and people are always looking for this. And then last spring they seen it. Somebody rode a horseback up there and went up to that hill, and here something there was, you know, they looked and there was a wooden box, and there's beads all over on the hill, kind of on the hillside. So he got off his horse and looked like those, you know, those long bones they have for those breastplates, you know. Some of those were there, and a lot of those little, you know, those, they call them pony beads, and a lot of little tiny beads all over. So he looked at it, and the box looked like a wagon box. You know how long time ago wagon boxes had kind of like handles on the sides? It was one of those. So he looked, and he seen some bones. So he hurried back down and told people that there's a grave up there and all that. So people went up there, and near that was the lady they were looking for. Her name is Ian Towie, blue earrings. And I heard about this old lady because my mother is related to them through the Breedwells and Mestis and all those. And here they found that. So the relatives are all young people now. They got together and want to rebury it. They want to do that. So they set a date to do that. And they got me and my cousin Reuben Ward, because we are almost the oldest around now that can tell that, you know. We heard about her because she died way before us, but we heard about her as being a medicine woman who heals people. She had the power to do a lot of things, you know. And she died, and that time there were no graveyards that they can, so they buried them wherever their land is or wherever they want to. So they buried her there, and they found her. So these people got together, and they were going to bury her. They took the box. When they made another box, and they took all those beads, and some of the younger ladies fixed the beads over, they threaded over, not as it was. And she had her little pipe all wrapped up, and she had a little hatchet and knife with the, you know, she had little bags. Long time ago they had medicine bags. They're all crushed up, and a lot of things she had inside that casket. And of course her dress is all ragged, but there's some of those elk tooth beads or whatever you call them that they used to wear. She had a lot of those in there too. And so they took all those and they put it in this box they made, and they put all those in there. And that's how come I was called over there. And as a minister, I had to do the services for that box with her remains. and beads and everything that was in there. People are saying when they do that, they have bad luck. You're going to have bad luck and all that, you know. But you know, if you're a Christian and if you're a spiritual leader, you have to overlook all those things. You got to be with God, the Makantunka within you, you know, to be strong in that. So I didn't think anything would happen. So I said, I'll do it. Nobody didn't want to do it. I'll do it. She's probably my great-grandmother. My mother often talks about her being and she also is a healer. And so I want to go and do that. And so I was called over there. They treat me well. No, they didn't know that I was a relative of them. And I myself didn't know either. But somehow they call me auntie and grandma. But now they're real close to me after doing that over there. And so we went out there and we sang hymns. And they said, it's all right, she's a medicine woman. You can sing Lakota, bring your drums, sing, you know, have smudge, all that. So they did. And we had services, and we had a feed, and we came back. And that evening, I couldn't sleep that night thinking about her. I said, what did she look like? Nobody has a picture of her, just the name. And I remember the name. I want to see her, I wonder how she is. What did she look like, you know? All night, I couldn't sleep. And finally I went to sleep. And the next morning, I had breakfast by myself at the house. I made my own breakfast and ate, and sitting there looking out the window and wondering. And I had I felt real kind of, you know, a sick fever, like my head kind of hurted, and I felt like I was nauseated. I didn't feel good. So I went and laid down on my bed. I took a Tylenol and laid down. I don't know what I did, but I took my kerchief and I tied it around my head, you know, and I laid down. I was laying there, and all of a sudden I seen her. This old lady came up to me, and she said, "Takoja, tako chana wopila chichu," she said. She said, "Granddaughter, I want to thank you for what you have done. These children have to know this, and I brought you these to do this for them." She brought me sage. She said, "Burn this. Every time there's a gathering, you do this. Go around doing this." And so I took the sage. Unchi. And she told me to say it 3 times. And the last one she told me to say it real long and loud. Unchi. 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 I said, you know, because she told me to say that. Hey, chamukte, you know, I will do it, you know. And she touched my head and she said, "Do it." And it just bothered me. When I got up, it was a dream. And it just made me feel that, and my headache was gone, and I got up, opened the curtain, looked out, and the clouds were there, and I seen her in the cloud, just the way I seen her in my dream. She had kind of a gray hair just sticking out like this. She tied that thing in a knot here where the wind was blowing like this. And she had a little white thing tied around her neck like this. And she had wrinkles on her face. And that's her. I was looking at her, and I said, "Uchi, Uchi, Uchi, hechamukte, you know, I will do it." And the cloud just went away. So I went to the phone, and I called the relatives that happened to be a great grandson of my our chairman, Greg Borland. He's my grandson also. Oh no, Grandma, he said, we're going to get together and we're going to invite you. You tell us all about it, you know, which was an honor. Whatever I do, I always write it down. I also wrote that down on the things, not the whole story, but the main things, her face. And so I was getting ready to go over to the minute to tell Mildred. She's one of them up there, Mildred. But they said she wasn't there. So I waited, and I called her, and I told her all about it. And I didn't think that it doesn't go all over. Kept getting phone calls asking me, Grandma, are you there? Did you see a vision or dream and all that? And I said, both. So that was what I had. They had a gathering. Oh, before that, they told me, what happened was, I don't know what, I never told that dream to no one but just the relatives. And one day my son came back and he said, Mom, he said, a man was selling this, so I bought this for you. You might need it sometimes, you're getting old, he said. What is it? I opened it up and it was those braided sweetgrass. Oh, Pilama, thank you, son. And I gave him a hug. And I put it on the table and I said, yes. I said, and I was going to tell him a story of that story I dreamt. I was going to tell him about it. But I looked at him and it seemed like he was kind of drunk, liquor on him. So I said, no, I don't have to, I thought. And I said, oh, I'll tell you later, you know. What, Grandma? Oh, Mom, tell me. He kept saying, no, I just dreamt about something like this. I said, tell me. No, I will when you're sober, son, you know. And then somebody knocked at the door, and I went to the door, and there was a boy standing at the door, and he said, Grandma, I brought you these. I said, what is it? And plastic bag, I peeked in her, he brought me some sage, you know? And I took it, and right away I pictured that old lady again. And I said, oh, thank you. How did you know I want this kind? I said, you know. And I took it and I said, can I give you some money for it? You might need something. And he said, no. No, he said, Grandma, I had a dream that you wanted some of these to, you know, for somebody. And I said, oh, sure, thank you. That dream must have went to this boy. And so I thanked him. But in a way, when I seen him one time, he was standing at the store and he was counting his change. And so here he said, I was trying to get a cigarette, I need some change. So I gave him $2. Oh, that helps, thank you. He said, I need a smoke. You know, you have to do that when someone gives you, in a way, they don't say, I'm not selling it to you, they won't say that, but in a way you have to turn around and give them some. So that's what I did. And then they found a man dead laying in a lake over here. And I seen that before, it happened also. I dreamt that they found a man dead somewhere and people asking who it is, and they asked me and I didn't know. That was a dream I had, and I said, oh, what a dream, I hope nobody would. But there was a day, some kids ran over to my house and they said, Grandma, there's a man lying over there, you know, under the ice. Under the ice? I said, yes. They said, can we use the phone to call somebody? Really? And yeah, there is, Grandma. They're little kids. Oh, sure you can. So I don't know who they called, but pretty soon there was sirens and everything going on. We went over there and there he was, laying under the tower over there. So they took him back and just making, I don't know, that funeral day, we have our soup kitchen every time, Tuesday and Thursday. I was over there, and this man, Jim Peacock, he went after me. Grandma Dora, I'll come after you. And he said, what for? Didn't you know that they're going to march to that place where they found that man? And I said, oh, by the way, who was he? And he said, that's the Eagle staff. One of those boys? Yes. So I said, excuse me, ladies, I have to go. And so he took me back over there. And while just as I was going in, this boy came up with that pan of smoke, and he handed it to me and said, Grandma Dora, would you do this today? And I looked right over that dream. That dream came to me. That lady told me to, my grandma told me to do that. And I said, all right, Pilama, I'll do it. So as they were praying and singing, I went all the way around, smudging people, all the way around. And then they all walked to that place. And do that over there too, where that place is, I said to them. And that also made me kind of feel like I was sick or something. Every time something like that kind of gives me a, I don't know how to explain it, but you know how, I don't know how would you say this, I don't know how to, but I pray about it and then I feel all right. So that's another thing that happened. And then this election going on, all that, I said, oh, before we went walking that way, Greg came to me. He said, Grandma, I didn't get much because I was over here talking. So I went and got that and I did that to him all over, And he said, thank you, and he gave me a hug. And then about a week later, election, and everybody went to vote and all that, And then I was wondering who's going to win. So that night I said, I wonder who will be our chairman, I'll say. And I didn't say who, but I wondered, because I don't know who it's going to be. I wonder who it is. So I had a dream that I walked into that chairman's office to see who was going to be the new chairman. And I walked in and there was smoke all over in the council chambers. So I went and looked, trying to see who's sitting up there. And I was going that way, and then I hit something. I stumbled and almost fell. Somebody grabbed me and lifted me up. I looked at it, and it was Greg Borland. And I said, Trakoja, you made it again. And he said, I did, Grandma, he said. And so I said, oh, I bet he's the one, So I woke up, and every time I have a dream like that, I go in my kitchen and start putting the sage. I have some hanging up, sweet grass, and I went like this all over it. And I said, God, whoever it is, I'll be glad to hear who it is, And then my sons came in, they said, you know who won the chairman? And who? Greg Borland. And I just stood up, and so they looked, did you vote for him? You know what, I never even went to vote, but I knew he was going to be the one. I said, how did you know? They said, because I seen him through the smoke. And I told him about it, and he just couldn't believe it. He had tears in his eyes. He was really hugging me. He said, thank you, Grandma. So I'm just glad for him. People say things about him, a lot of bad things about him, and I don't want to listen to it. I said, leave everything to God. Come to church or go ceremony, do things. I said, you're an Indian, So that's a dream I had too. Also.
shi wi cha sa ki hey na hey chi ya da u hey yeah hey how hey 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 ya hey how ho hey hey ya ya hey how hey ya hey ya hey ho hey yo oh ya te ki ha cha ya pe shi ya hey na si ni he wa u hey wa shi wi cha sa ki hey na hey chi ya da u hey yo.
My name is Betty Crow. My maiden name is Betty Clown. And I come from the Crazy Horse clan and Red Thunder clan. And my grandmother, my grandmother's name was Julia Iron Cedar Woman, and she married Amos Clown. And she was the one that's related to Chief Crazy Horse. She's a stepsister to Chief Crazy Horse. She has two brothers that are also stepbrothers to Chief Crazy Horse. And their names are Kuming and Wolf. Kuming meaning galakja, like you comb your hair. And Mancha, as in wolf. And we heard a lot of stories about La Mancha when we were little. And my father's mother was Julia Iron Cedar Woman, and my mother is Anna Louise Redbird Clown. My father is James Clown, and my father was my mother's uncle, but they got married to keep the bloodline pure, they said. And so me and my brothers and sisters are all full-blood Lakotas and Minikhojus. And when I was born in Thunder Butte, South Dakota. And my uncle Edward Clown gave me the name Betty Lou. And of course my family name is Clown. And I have a grandfather named Fool Dog. I know him only as Lala Fool Dog until recently. I was talking to my aunt, and she said that his first name was Paul. And he fasted and he prayed for 3 days and 3 nights. And he gave me the name Envied Lady, which means As Impiwi. And he named my sister also Elma. Her name was Nietzsche Olewi. She goes looking for people who need stuff and she gives it to them. And all my life, I always, my grandfather told me never to get jealous of anybody. And he said I would never have a good girlfriend, because no matter, even if I don't have anything good, people will always be jealous of me, he said. So I always thought people were jealous of me. So I never did get jealous of other people. And I really believed that. And when I was little, we played by the river all summer, and we stayed down by the river most of the time with my mother and all the women in the camp. They come down to the river with their kids, and we all stayed down there, till towards the evening we all go home. And then my mom would ask us if we did anything wrong or said anything wrong. And we'll tell her if I fought my cousins or if I said mean things to them. I always hate to admit it, but I'll tell her. And my dad would come back from work, and my grandfather Amos Clown and his 4 sons and his 2 son-in-laws, they did a sweat every evening. And they did it way out in the, down by the river, like about a mile away, so that when and then they would do the sweat, and that means that they washed off all the sins of their family so they can start the next day pure and have another chance at a good life again. And I grew up believing that. And pretty soon, as I started getting a little bit older, about 4 or 5, my cousin and I, we started griping about it. And one time he said, "God, I'm really hungry." He said, "I don't know why them people have to do this every evening." He said, "I'm starving." He said. Well, anyway, he had to watch to see when they come out of the sweat, and he'll ride home and tell us, so everybody will start getting ready to eat. Then we have to say a prayer before we eat, and that always got me because I was always so hungry. And then I said to my grandfather, Fool Dog, I told him, I said, "Grandpa, when I get old, grow up, I'm leaving this place and I ain't ever coming back." I said. And he said, "What for?" So I said, I said, "Because I hate this way of living." I said, "We have to get up in the morning and come outside until they pray, and then we can't go back to sleep." I said, and then we can't eat when we want. I said, "In the evening I'm hungry and we have to wait till they come out of the sweat." And I said, "Us women don't have to. I wonder why we can't eat first." And he must have been listening, really. He said to me, well, he said, he let me go on for a while complaining, and then I said I wanted a new pair of shoes, like my brother and my sister, because I always wore moccasins and leggings, and I hated it because I always have to be wrapping those thongs up my leg. But he said to me in Indian, he said, "Granddaughter, when if you leave this place, if you don't want to live the way we live," he said, "someday you're going to be incorrigible," he said. Because he said, "and you're going to be among the people that are drinking alcohol," he said. "Because those people become incorrigible when they do that," he said. And that's one of the visions of Crazy Horse. He said in the future the Indians are going to be drinking alcohol beverages. He said, and they're going to be incorrigible, he said. So I told him, well, I have never tasted alcohol, I said, and I never intend to, but when I leave here, I said, I'm going to go learn something. I said, I want to be like the white people. I said, I want to wear shoes, and I want to get an education, I said, because I want to be a teacher. I said, like that teacher we have in this camp, I told him. And he said, well, he said, give yourself time to grow up first, he said, and always think about that today is the only day, he said, that you can live. He said, you can't live yesterday over. You can't live tomorrow because it's not here yet, he said, but today is the day that, and you should always treat people nice and say nice stuff, he said. If you can't say anything good, he said, don't say anything at all, he said. And I remember that when he said that. And then I lived with my grandmother Redbird for a while, and her son, youngest son, was George Redbird, and he was also my grandfather, because George Redbird's older brother Howard was my mother's father. And he had an owl, and it was a tall owl. I think it stood about a yard long, 36 inches high, and he's always stood by the door. And I think my mother told him to keep me because I was really naughty, and that owl was supposed to teach me how to respect people. So anyway, after we get done eating, I used to eat lunch about 1 o'clock, and then I'd go to sleep or take a nap. And I used to hate that owl because it just stared at me. And I laid right across, like about 15 feet from him in a single bed, and sometimes I try to outstare it, but I would never. I'd go fall asleep, just staring at it. And one day I thought, these kids are really going to have a good time down by the river. All their parents, my mom and them, are all going down there, but I have to sit at home with this old lady. And I'm going to run out of here, I was thinking, as soon as she goes to sleep. She was sitting by the table, and she always puts her mat underneath the table, and she'll lay down there and rest. And my grandfather would be sleeping in the other room, taking a rest because he was sickly. And here, I was laying there looking at that owl, and here it closed its eyes. And so I was laid and looked and looked. I thought he was asleep, so I jumped up and I ran to the door, and I grabbed my shoes just as I was going to unlock that screen door. He starts stomping his feet and clicking his eyes. So gee, I threw those shoes at him and jumped back on a bed. And so I never tried that again. And I guess that's how you discipline children that are hard to discipline by their parents. But I liked it. My grandmother made hot biscuits every meal. I ate a lot of papa soup, wasna, wakap hapi. I ate a lot of choke cherries, buffalo berries, plums. I not only ate them, we all went to pick them. On certain days, the whole clan would go to a certain spot and pick the cherries and the berries and the plums and the turnips. And I almost said rutabaga because I argued with one of my grandmothers that it was a rutabaga, and she said, no, it isn't, it's a turnip. So we used to go, whole clan would go digging for turnips and currants. I remember those two we picked during June, and we always want to eat them, but they'll dry them. They'll dry them, and they told us that's for winter. And I did a lot of riding horseback. I always had a horse. And me and my cousins, we all ride. We'll say we'll meet someplace, and we'll all roam the west of Thunder Butte. The Thunder Butte camp is about 10 miles from that butte. But we used to go up there and climb that butte, and at that time there was one little Christmas tree up there. And I heard that about 20 years ago it died or something. They said just the root was there. But I remember climbing up there, and there's a lot of things that my father, he had a lot of cattle and a lot of horses, and in those days there was no fences. So my brother and my cousin Margie and my cousin Manuel, we all herd cattle every day. We stand on the highest hills we could see each other from, and we have a white dish towel or something tied onto a stick. And my mother would give us a fried rabbit, piece of fried rabbit, and kabubu bread and a jug of water, and that's what we had for lunch. I used to sit underneath my horse because it gets so hot sometimes, and just sit there, and sometimes he'd swing his tail around and it'll get cool, and then I'll when I just about get real tired, and I'd stand up and look towards where my brother was, and he'll be waving his white flag, so we'd get on the horses and herd all the cattle and horses back down to the dam and the creeks, and then we'd go home. And somewhere along the line, my father and them quit sweating every evening, and they started drinking, and that's when I started boarding school. I told my grandfather that I want to go to boarding school. I don't want to stay home because I want a new pair of shoes. I was sick and tired of wearing moccasins, I told him. And he said, well, he said, if you want to go, go ahead, he said. And my grandmother said, well, she said, if you don't get lonesome, she said in Indian. When you go, she says, you listen to what the teacher says every morning. When you go to class, she said, pay attention to the teacher, and you learn what she has to teach you. She said, you be good to everybody, she said, because those kids that go there, they'll probably feel the same like as you do. They'll be lonesome and they'll miss their parents, but you eat what they feed you, she said. Don't complain, she said, just eat it, she said. So the day I went to boarding school, my sister and my brother and there was another cousin, we all went in a car. We got to boarding school, and I learned how to say my name, how old I was, and my birthday, and who my mother and father was. And I said it in that order. And there's some Indian girls helping us register, and one of them was my aunt, so she knew me. And then we went to bed, and I was really, I was kind of disgusted because we went to bed early when the sun's still it's kind of light out. But next morning when I got up, and we had to march to eat to the dining room. So when we went out, well, then I seen this teepee on this lawn, and I was walking by it. I looked at it, and it looked like my grandfather's teepee. But I didn't say anything. I went to eat, and on the way back I peeked in there, and here he was sitting in there. And he must have been meditating, because I said to him, I said, Grandpa, what are you doing here? Are you going to go to school too? And he said, no. He said, your mom sent me. He said, I brought your pony. He said, and she said, as soon as you get lonesome, I'm supposed to take you home. So I said, oh, I said, I am never going to get lonesome. See all these swings and seesaws down here? I said, it's fun here, Grandpa. I said, just go home. But he stayed there about a week, and he did his business uptown and visited his friends at the camp. And one morning when I was going to breakfast, I noticed the teepee was gone. But the evening before that, I said to him, oh man, I said, you should go home. You shouldn't be waiting around for me to get lonesome, I said. And here next morning, when I realized he was gone, boy, I really got lonesome. And I didn't eat, and I didn't want to go to school. But this matron told me that I have to. He said, well, you should have went home when your grandfather was here, she said. But I cried and cried and cried. So my aunt, I have some aunts that went to school there, and they comforted me, and they took me to school with them and stuff until I got over it. And then I liked boarding school. I came home on summer vacations, and we did the same things: ride horseback, pick cherries, dig turnips, dried currants, helped my mother dry her choke cherries, and babysat, and that's one of the reasons why I liked boarding school, is because I had my own bed, and you can eat 3 times a day, and you can take a shower every night. And I enjoyed that. And I didn't have to babysit. I didn't have to wash dishes. The big girls did that at the boarding school. I just swept my bathroom and cleaned my bathroom. That was my chore. And later on, as I went into high school, I realized that when you got trained like that when you're little, well, then as you get into teenage ways, well, then you realize those are your responsibilities. They're not just chores anymore, they're your responsibilities, and you realize that that's a way to discipline yourself and how to be a good person and be a good role model. And I realized that when I was about a sophomore, and when I went home, I did the same things I did at boarding school. I helped my mother. This time I enjoyed washing dishes, and my sisters and I, we took turns babysitting, because there was 12 of us in our family. I had 5 brothers and 6 sisters. And in those days, they didn't get commodities. My dad worked. He was worked for ranchers. And my mother, she gets lease money every Christmas. She had a lot of land and a lot of cattle. They can kill one, sell a few every year, and that's how they raised us. They had to budget. And I never realized how hard it was to budget money until after I had my family. And then I graduated from boarding school. And in the summer times, I would work. My mother was in a Susan. She had TV, and my dad was over there with her. He sold most of his cattle and his horses, and he lived in Rapid City. To be close to my mom, so my brothers and sisters and I, we stayed at the boarding school. And I worked in the summer times. I babysat for ranchers or farmers, and I earned my own school clothes money. And I realized that there's a lot of us, so I know how much clothes cost then. So that's why I enjoyed working and being responsible for myself. And I always told myself, I'm going to graduate no matter what, and I'm going to go on to school, because my grandmother told me to. And one of the grandparents, she was a borrowed grandmother. Her name was Mary Traversy Dupree Talks. And my uncle Edward Klon was married to her daughter, Amy Talks. And I stayed with them a couple of times, couple of summers, and I learned a lot from her. She always told us about how her ancestors came over on one of the 3 boats from Spain. And she told me a lot about Chief Crazy Horse too. She said he was a chief, and he that someday they were going to screen the people, and she told me all the stuff that I already knew from my grandfather. So I knew then that what my grandfather told me was true. And she encouraged me to go to college and all that. And then she got sick, and so I said, well, I'm going to go to LPN training school. when I come back, I'm going to take care of her. But while I was in training, while she died, and nobody told me because they didn't want me to come home. They said if she comes home, well, she won't go back to school, so they never told me until I graduated from LPN training school. And then my grandfather, Fool Dog, he also told us about Chief Crazy Horse. He told us that he was a holy man, that he practiced being an Indian medicine man since he was 6 years old. And he told us that to be a holy man, he said, you have to start when you're 6 to learn how to sing the songs that Wakantanka likes and how to find the herbs, and that if you keep yourself holy and not be going from teepee to teepee or house to house visiting, he said, and just keep your mind on Wakantanka while you can commute with him. And he said that Chief Crazy Horse did a lot of this, and he used to tell the clan where to find buffalo, or where there's a good camping ground in the winter or in the summertime, or where there's a lot of berries to be picked. And he told us that one of my cousins asked him if this man is so holy, does he know when the end of the world is going to come? And he said, yeah. He said, I'll tell you about it. He said, but I'm going to tell you these things first, because this is what he said. He said, one of the things that's going to happen before the end of the world is all this country is going to be made into, fences are going to be made on this country. And if these people come and make a fence right on your doorstep, if you walk over it, they're going to kill you, he said. So when that happens, soon after that, he said they're going to start a statue of Crazy Horse. And he knew they was going to make a statue of him. And after that, he said they're going to screen the people. And we didn't understand, because in Indian, Kalehang Iya means like you get all the cattle together and you're taking them back down to the river or something like that. And he said, well, he said, just imagine a corral, he said in Indian. And they divide that corral and like a pie, he said, and then they put this cow over here because it's going to have a calf. They put that one over there because it's a bull. They put that one over there because it has blonde hair and blue eyes, and one over here because he's full blood, like that, he said. And so then we understood what he meant. And then he said soon after that, he said, they're going to get the Black Hills back. The Lakotas are going to get the Black Hills back, he said. Well, soon after that, they're going to finish that statue of Crazy Horse, he said. And then soon after that, they're going to have all these earthquakes all over this country, he said. And you won't be able to run from it, he said. And soon after that, the end of the world is going to come, he said. And then when he told us that, then we got scared and we didn't want to hear any more. And he said, and when, as you grow up, he said, if you go to church, he said, if you pray, he said, pray every morning and every night, he said. Not just on Sundays, he said, like these Episcopal priests and Catholic ministers, they just have you come to church on Sunday so you can pray, he said, but remember to pray every morning and every night and thank Wakantanka that you had another good day. And my cousin said, oh, we do that. He said, my dad tells us that all the time. My mother too, he said. So we know that. He said, tell us something that we don't know. And he told us that about this how Crazy Horse came to be on this reservation. He said, this is Crazy Horse's stomping grounds, he said, because he used, when he fasts and prays, he said, he goes to the, he does that almost every month, he said. But one day, he said, when he was born, he said, the same day a girl was born. And the two fathers got together and said, them two are going to get married when they grow up. But when Crazy Horse went to fast and pray the first time, he said his friend from heaven told him that he's not going to live to be an old man, that he was going to die in a few short years. So Crazy Horse didn't want to marry this girl. And he told his mother and father, so they told this girl's mother and father, and they got mad. They said, you guys promised. And the mother and father said, well, he didn't, he was a baby. It was us that said that, but now we don't, he wants us to tell you he doesn't want to get married. And so that night, this girl's clan, they said, well, we'll move over to their camping site. And so they did. And that night they told this girl to go jump in bed with Crazy Horse, and she's supposed to scream and cry, and her father and her uncles and her brothers were going to go arrest him and make him marry her. So, but she didn't know that Crazy Horse was fasting on a hill somewhere. And Crazy Horse's best friend and cousin was Little Big Man. And Crazy Horse didn't have a wife, but so Little Big Man always took care of his teepees, and he made his moccasins, and he cooked for him and like that. And here, this girl went into that teepee and jumped in bed with this man, and he was really eager, so he slept with her. And here the next morning, Crazy Horse came down from fasting, and he knocked on that teepee and said, get up, my friend. He said, I'm really hungry. He said, wait till what I have to tell you. I'll tell you when I get done eating. And here this girl looked at this man that she was sleeping with, and here it wasn't Crazy Horse, it was Little Big Man. So she started screaming and crying anyway. So her father and her uncles and her brothers came and arrested Crazy Horse. Even when they seen him standing outside of the teepee, they still wanted, so they still blamed him. And his parents told him, well, and this is the only time they said he ever lied. But my grandfather said, he's the one that didn't lie. He said he never said anything, but his parents told this girl's parents, well, within 3 days, they'll get married. So they calmed down, and the second night, I guess all of Crazy Horse clan packed up and left, but nobody heard them. And they came northeast from down in Pine Ridge someplace, and from Oglala, they said. They came northeast, and when they were ready to cross the Cheyenne River, it started snowing. So it must have been in late October or November. And there's a cove, they said, right across where Kenneth West used to live down by Cheyenne River. There's a big cove, so they all wintered it out there. They stayed there all winter, and nobody could find them. And he said, so the next spring came, he said they came across, and they came over here to the Morrow River where On the Trees is, he said. So some of the relatives stayed there, and then they moved to Greengrass, some lived there, and on to Bear Creek, Thunder Butte, and Iron Lightning. He said, all these people are Crazy Horse's relatives, he said. So that was one of the stories he told us about Crazy Horse. And he told us that his father was an Indian medicine man like himself, and that he was a spokesman for Chief Crazy Horse. He said Crazy Horse never went in the middle of the camp and talked about all that he did, like maybe he killed a bear that day, but he never boasted, he said. It was, he said, my father that went out camp and told about the good things Crazy Horse told him, where they can find this, and he can tell the future and all that, he said. So he used to tell the people. He waits until the last, and he goes and tells the men, he said, because it was only the men that always go in the middle of the camp and talk about their prowess, or wakdegli, he said. And so he said, if you're going to be Indian medicine man, you cannot ever get married, he said, because if you do, your medicine is going to be no good, he said, because your mind will be on that woman. She'll take your mind off of Wakantraka, and all you can do is try to please that woman, so you won't make a good medicine man, he said. You always have to have he said, a sunbeam from your presence to heaven, he said, and that's your connection to Wakantraka, he said. You can talk to him if you're holy, he said. And that's how Crazy Horse was. And so then another day, evening, my cousin must have really been thinking about that, because he said, first, before you tell a story, he said, I want to ask you one thing. So he said, go ahead. He said, well, if your father, he said, is Indian medicine man and he can't ever get married, he said, how come he had you, he said. And he laughed and said, well, he said, you're a smart boy, he said. I was wondering when you're going to ask me that, he said. He said, it's this way, he said. My father was Indian medicine man, and when Crazy Horse died, he said, then the Indian ways, you're not supposed to live that way anymore. He said, so he married, and he said, when my father was 50 years old, he said, I was born. So he said, I knew my father when he was an old man, he said. So then we knew then that, because Wayne kept saying that, how can he say that you can't be an Indian medicine man if you get married? Well, how did they have him? He'll say to us, and we'll say, well, I don't know. But that's one of the things he told us. And I had another grandfather. His name was, he was a borrowed grandfather too. I don't know if he was a relative or not, but his name was George Tox. And he had one leg. And he used to tell us stories about when he was a young man. He said his mother was a Cheyenne Indian, a Shahila, he said. And when he was a baby, his mother was lonesome, and when her parents came to this country to visit her, well, when they left, well, she took Lala George was a baby, and she took him and she went home with her parents, and when they were halfway home to the Teton, well, Lala George's father, he came up on them and he rode up to the wagon they were taking him in, and he grabbed his son and turned around and came back, brought him back to Thunder Butte, he said. And he never seen his mother after that. So he grew up there. And we said, well then my baby brothers and sisters used bottles then. So I said, did you have to use a bottle? And he said, no, he said. I didn't have to use one, he said. I had a grandmother here, he said, so she had a daughter and she had twins, so I nursed her, he said, until I was 2 years old. Excuse me. And he had a lot of stories to tell too. And on my mother's side, I never knew my grandfather or her mother. He was dead, and her mother remarried again down to Cherry Creek. His name was Joe Hale. And when her and her brother went to live with them down there, well, he was mean to them, so they ran away, her brother and her, and he was 6 and she was 8. And they walked all the way back to Thunder Butte. She said it took them 3 days. But they never went back to her mother again, because her grandmother on her father's side took them in and raised them. So she never talks about her mother or her father. When I was little, I had a I had a goat, and it was a billy goat, and my uncle made us some little wagons. So we used to hitch it up. I had to put my baby brother in there, and I used to grab that bridle and I'd go all over the country out there where we used to live. Just take care of him all afternoon. And then one of my grandparents was, her name was Phoebe Poor Buffalo, and that was my father's aunt. And her father, I think her first cousin or her father was Kuming. I think that was her father. She used to come every fall to live at my mom and dad's place out in the country. She rode horseback. She was in her 70s, but she could really run and she could really ride horseback. And when she comes, she has a travois with her teepee and all her herbs. And when she comes, we have to, all winter long, she brings skunk oil, and we have to drink a tablespoon of that every morning so we won't catch cold. And my older sister just hated it. So one day we were supposed to watch out for her because she's supposed to be coming. So we were on top of the hill, and here when she seen her coming, she started to cry. And she said, and the Indian, gee, she said, I hate this old lady, she said. So I said, ran down and said, Mom, you know what, Alma said that. And she said, why? And here Alma said, because she's bringing skunk oil again. And my dad had sheep too. So then when he, around October, he'll butcher some and she'll dry them, my grandmother, and she takes the skin, the hide, and or whatever it is, and she make us gloves and make us overshoes for our moccasins, and she makes vests out of them for us, and she soaks them in skunk oil. She soaks them in skunk oil, and she make us wear it all winter. That's what my sister didn't like. But we never got sick. My father had big gardens, and the clan would come and they'd harvest, and they'd each take a part. And he'd also butcher, and he gives them each some meat. And his Indian name was Chief Crazy Horse II, my father, because he took care of it, and so he had to take care of his clan. And I remember 2 of my uncles, they're dead and gone now, but they used to tell me, boy, they said, nobody can do what Jim Clown did. He made big gardens and shared it with everybody, he said. Nowadays, nobody can do that. But they're both dead and gone too. And he was a bronc rider, or saddle bronc rider, my dad. He used to win at rodeos. And he had a racehorse named Buddy Horse. And he won first place at faith most of the time, and every place he took him. But one sad thing about that was some people were jealous. And when we took him to a faith stock show one year again, 2 men went and cut his tendons, this racehorse. Even though my dad hired a white boy to watch that, he must have fell asleep, because he said when he woke up, when his horse started screaming, he woke up and here these 2 Indian men took off. And this horse couldn't stand up, and he ran out the stable, and these 2 Indian men got on horses and they took off north. He said he didn't know who they were. But that is one of the sad stories we had in our family. Of course, when every loved one dies, it's sad, you know. But we were told not to grieve for them after they get buried. You're supposed to cry all you want the time you die, and then when they die, we have to be quiet for 4 days. We can't play or anything. And that's how they discipline. You learn to discipline yourself too. And then after that, after they get buried, then you can't cry for them or grieve for them, because if you do, well, their spirit is gonna fly around on earth here crying. But if you leave them alone and pray for them every night, well, their spirit will get to the Milky Way. And after 1 year, then you can remember and all the things that he had or she had, and the things during the year that you sacrificed. Like if I wanted a material or something I really wanted, well, I'll buy it and I'll keep it. And then when 1 year is up, you give it away to one of his friends or somebody that's poor. You never give these stuff to his relatives, the person that died, her or his relatives, because you'll be inviting the death spirit back into the clan. So when you give star quilts away like they do these days, they give it to the relatives, but they're not supposed to really. And there's a lot of discipline that was taught to us without me knowing it. As I grow older, I realize how I learned to value these teachings that I was taught. And they always say I was always naughty. I never wanted to wash dishes when I was 8 or 9. And I'll really hurry up and get done eating first, and if I can't eat it all, I give it to my sister Mary. And she likes to eat, so she'll take it, and I'll hurry up and I'll tell my mother, I gotta go use the bathroom, and I'll run outside, and the toilet was an outdoor toilet, and it was placed right at the edge of the bank. So I'll go in there, and I made a hole. I'll be peeking towards the door, but nobody comes out. I'll go over the bank, and I'll go down to the river, cross it, and I'll go way far away. I'll go all the way around the camp and go to my cousin's house, and then her and I would play. And I can always hear my mother when she used to say, Betty Lou, it's your turn to wash the dishes. You better stay here. And I'll say, well, I want to go to the bathroom. And she'd say, well, you just have to go in your pants. Then I knew I couldn't get out. So that's how she made me stay and wash dishes. And I soon realized that you can't get your way whenever you want. Because she wouldn't, by that time candy came to be really one of the best things that we ever ate, my brothers and sisters and I, and she used that to discipline me too. And on Christmas days, my dad, it was getting modern in those days. We had big sleighs, and my dad would put us in, and he'll take us to the camp for Christmas. And he'll put all the choir, all the young kids in the 2 sleighs, and he'll go around the camp and they'll sing Christmas carols, and everybody will end up down at the community house. It was a big log house. And they had Christmas tree, and we ate supper, and I always got for Christmas a doll, and then when I was a teenager, it was during the war years, and they had to use stamps to buy everything like sugar and shoes and stuff like coats and stuff like that. So it was kind of poor. We were kind of poor during those years. So at Christmas, my dad would say, well, we can't buy toys or anything like that, but he said, we should be as grateful that we're all alive here, and we're not in Germany, and we're not Jews, he said. Well, I was wondering why he said that until I grew up and found out what Hitler did to the Jews. Then I realized why he said that. And on Easter Day, they used to have feeds and down at the Episcopal Church, and the whole community used to have it. The whole community had Christmas together, and no matter what church you belonged to, and Easter they all had feed together. And on Memorial Day, they had different cemeteries that they went to. But we had one out in the country where my uncle Moses Clown was buried. He was a World War I veteran, and he died in France. And he was buried out there to Flanders Field for a year, and then they brought him back a year after, and they buried him down at the Clown Cemetery. And to this day, we still go down there. And I didn't really start realizing how people get very emotional when loved ones die until I was about 30 years old. And I seen one of my grandmothers die, and I really felt bad. And then after that, I had, there was 12 of us, and then one of my brothers died in '69, and one died in 1996, and my older sister died in '92. So I'm the oldest of the family now, and I'm 63. And I don't go visiting anymore like I used to. I got a lot of things wrong with me. I got diabetes, and I got arthritis, and I got hypothyroidism, and I take medication for these things. And but I do exercise. I exercise at that community building, a healthy place along the road here. And I do pray every morning and every night, because I was an alcoholic for 13 years, and I walked into it with my eyes wide open. And when I tried to quit, I couldn't. So I went to treatment. And I was working I was an LPN. I went to school for LPN in Albuquerque, and when I graduated, I came back and worked in Fort Yates, and I became a field health nurse because I could understand and talk Indian. I taught diabetes in Lakota, and I taught a lot of my elderlies at that time how to take the medicine. And I realized nowadays a lot of people don't know how to do that. And even some of my sisters that talk and understand Indian, sometimes they ask me how to say this and how to say that. But I talk Indian all the time at home to my children. And they don't know how to make sentences, but they know what I say. And to today's parents, I'd like to tell them that not to drink, and to love their families, to love their children. And to the grandchildren and the future generations, that's probably one of my biggest deals, is to tell them not to drink. Because it causes a lot of bad feelings, and it disrupts the whole family. Even if just one of the family is the alcoholic, it disrupts the whole family. And it causes FAS in babies, and you lose your traditional values. And to turn more to a kantanka. Teach your children to believe in a higher power. Because God is there whenever you need Him, but you should always thank Him for being there. And to get an education. Because my grandfather said, Fool Dog said, one of the things Chief Crazy Horse said when he came down from his last fasting was that he said his friend from heaven told him that to go back down and tell the people, his people, to live like the white man now. He said there will be no more victories in wars, in Indian wars anymore, he told him. And he said, tell them to learn everything the white man has to teach him. Because Lakota is going to use the white man's language to get the Black Hills back, he said. So when he came back down and told the other chiefs, they all laughed at him and they called him a traitor. But he said to them, well, who's the traitor? I didn't sign away the Black Hills like you guys did, he said. You're the ones that are traitors. This Black Hill still belongs to me and my clan, he said. And for this reason, we're not supposed to all get together and gather. All the Crazy Horse clan's not supposed to get together as a gathering, because somebody might kill us, because we still own the Black Hills. And we can get it back, they said. Because my grandfather Wolf, he went down to the Cheyenne River after his commodities one year. I guess they got them when the reservation first started. And then in the 50s, they started getting commodities again. But back then, they had to go get them to the Cheyenne River because the boat came in that far. And he went in the wagon, and on his way back, he said, two FBI agents start shooting at him. They're going to kill him. So he took one of his teams. He unhitched it and he got on it and he rode off into the ravines, because these agents didn't know the land, but he did, so he got away from them. And they came after, they were looking for my grandmother Julie Ironseed, a woman too, they said, when she first got married to my grandfather, but they hid her. They hid her in towards Cheyenne, where the Cheyenne people live. So we're not supposed to all get together. And that's why we don't go to the meetings they have for Black Hills and like that. They told us that when Wakantraka wants you to have the Black Hills back, he'll get it back, they said. So don't go to these meetings. Don't argue about it, they said. Just keep praying and turn your life and will over to Wakantraka, because he's the one that made you, they said. Well, I guess I'm done talking.
Washi wicha shaki